I'd like to welcome you to our September the 19th, 2024 council meeting. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each person shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every person or every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. We ask that you also please silence all your electronic devices. With that, I call this council meeting to order. Can we all stand together for the invocation? I'd like to invite Pastor David Nye from Christ Our Savior Fellowship Church. Thank you for coming tonight. If you'll lead us in our invocation, please remain standing after the invocation for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, I want to take this opportunity now to thank you for another day of life. We also recognize that you are sovereign over all the affairs of men, as well as you are sovereign over the entire universe. Now, Lord, we ask that you would bless our City of St. Cloud leaders, especially these council members, as they debate and make decisions that impact all the citizens of St. Cloud. Lord, we ask that you'd give them wisdom, good judgment. We also ask that whatever decisions that are made here this evening would be pleasing and honoring to you. We ask this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny? Here. Councilmember Urban?
Here.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Here.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Here. Ms. Manager, do you have any agenda updates you'd like to share with us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remove public hearing number 5, resolution number 2024-169R.
All right, so it is acknowledged you're pulling and removing it from the agenda.
Yes, as well as council action number 3, resolution number 2024-173R.
And we acknowledge that that has been pulled. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, please. I'd like to request to move council action number 1, resolution number 2024-122R, immediately after the consent agenda.
And if there are no objections, we will certainly do so.
Thank you. That is all.
There are no presentations for this evening, so we'll move to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on any item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a sign-in form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical after the person addresses the council. We'll ask that if you come forward that you please state your name and address for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak during the citizens forum to any item not on the agenda? If not, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they will have the same opportunity. First, I'd like to ask the council, are there any of the 2 items on the consent agenda that you are wanting to address? Then I'll ask if anyone in the audience would like to speak to the 2 items on our consent agenda. would you please come forward at this time? If not, then we'll have discussion and/or motion by council. What is the pleasure of the council concerning our consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny for the approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Councilmember Urban. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
At this time, we will hear item number 1, council action. Item number 1, resolution number 2024-122R. Would you please read that into the record?
Resolution number 2024-122R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, authorizing the issuance of capital improvement revenue bonds in one or more series bearing such other designation as is approved by the city manager in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $90 million as provided herewith to one, refund the then outstanding amount, if any, of a loan from the Florida Local Government Finance Commission approved by the city on June 13, 2024, as amended August 26, 2024, in the original aggregate principal amount of not exceeding $19 million, and 2, finance the cost of certain capital improvements by the city, providing for the covenants of the city with the holders of the bonds, providing for the rights, security, and remedies of the registered owners by such bonds, providing for the appointment of the bonds registrar, and paying agents for bonds, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Jeff Cooper, Finance Director. I would like to introduce Jay Glover from PFM, which will be giving you a short presentation on the bonds. And him and our bond counsel, Sandy McLennan, is also here to answer any questions that you might have. And I want to thank them for taking the time to attend this meeting.
Mayor, council members, Jay Glover from PFM Financial Advisors, and we are the city's financial advisor on debt-related matters. So before you today is a resolution approving the issuance of the Capital Improvement Revenue Bond Series 2024. And as you can see on this list, it's to fund a variety of capital projects for public safety and parks and recreation needs. The resolution sets forth various parameters whereby you're delegating authority to move forward if we can actually meet those parameters, and those parameters are listed here. Not to exceed par amount of $90 million, true interest cost not to exceed 5%, a final maturity no later than September 1 of 2045, and a delivery date of no later than December 31 of 2025. So we have to close the financing before the end of next year. I will also note that the bonds can be issued in one or more series to actually meet the spending needs of the city based on the various projects. So we might not issue the full not to exceed $90 million at one issuance. We might split that up because you have to spend the proceeds for tax purposes within 3 years of issuance. PFM has recommended that the bonds be sold via competitive sale. So what that means, on an advertised date, we'll advertise the sale and accept bids from qualified underwriters. And the underwriter offering the lowest true interest cost will be awarded all of the bonds. So that assures you of getting the lowest cost on that given day from entities that are willing to bid on these bonds. The bonds are also secured by what we call a covenant to budget and appropriate legally available non-ad valorem revenue. So that's really everything but your ad valorem taxation is securing these bonds, although there's a plan to use 1% surcharge as well as various impact fees to actually make the debt service payment. So while you have a broader security to improve the credit rating and get a lower issuance rate, you will have a specific source of revenue that you intend to make the payments from. Also, you'll recall recently the City Council approved up to $19 million worth of commercial paper. We took down around $18 million of that, I think, earlier this week, and that was to start start on some of the most shovel-ready projects. So some interim financing, so you can go ahead and get started on the most ready projects and not start accruing interest on the full bond deal. So we did that earlier this week, and that commercial paper will be repaid by the issuance of the first series of long-term bonds that we do in the future. On this page, we show, based on current market conditions, we would expect an all-in true interest cost of around 4%. Actually, I think that would be a little bit better today than 4%. The Fed took some action yesterday to lower interest rates. And while that mostly impacts the short end of the yield curve, long-term rates have come down a little bit as well. But we would project something, south of 4% in terms of an all-in true interest cost if we were entering the market today. And obviously, that will fluctuate as we move forward. Hopefully, the trend will be for lower rates if Fed continues to take action. But again, that's where we sit today. Also, the table that you see, that shows what the estimated annual debt service payments would be if we issued the full not to exceed $90 million. In fact, the projects are intended to be $85 million, so the $90 million just gives us a little bit of cushion. So this debt service schedule here is actually based on $85 million worth of projects really being funded at one time. The actual debt service payments will obviously depend on when we issue the bonds, if we do separate series, and what the final interest rates might be. But again, we can only move forward if we're below 5%, which I don't see any issues with that. And the final slide just outlines what we're asking for you to do here today, for you to consider and hopefully approve the resolution that authorizes the issuance of the Capital Improvement Revenue Bond Series 2024. And we have the authority or the ability to change that series designation to 2025 if we likely will not issue the bonds till 2025, but we have the ability to do that. So again, as was mentioned by Mr. Cooper, Sandy McLennan from Squire Patton Boggs, your bond counsel who drafted the bond resolution, is here to address any questions you might have about it from a legal perspective, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have from a financial perspective on the transaction. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the advisors that are here to speak at this point?
Just
Mr.
questions.
Cooper, do you have anything? If you'll stand aside just for a minute, we'll allow public comment at this time. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, then we'll have this question, discussion, motion by council.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion from Council Member Gilbert and a second from Council Member Matheny for the approval of this bond issue. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Wow. I won't say anything. I just had some funny thoughts go through my head. Those are. At this time, we'll go to public hearings, item number 1. Madam Clerk, will you please read public hearing item number 1 into the record?
Final public hearing for resolution number 2024-119R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final ad valorem tax millage for the City of St. Cloud for the fiscal year 2024-2025, the same being adopted prior to the adoption of a final budget for said period.
Jeff Cooper, Finance Director again. As per Florida Statute 200.065, this is the second of 2 required public hearings to adopt the final ad valorem tax millage, which is proposed to be 5.1128. That will be the 12th consecutive year that it's been at that rate. It is 7.69% above the rollback rate of 4.7479. And of course, the rollback rate is the rate that would generate the same amount of tax dollars as last year, excluding new construction. So just as an example, if someone had an assessed property value of $250,000, their city tax bill would be $1,278. The highlights of why we need 5.1128 is a 19.8% increase in personnel cost due to 2% COLA and a 3% pay adjustment to keep high-quality professional staff here working for the city. 13 new and 6 newly funded PD positions, increase in health insurance costs, and also increase in our pension contribution costs of $2.5 million. And here's the breakdown of all the general fund positions that this year's budget is funding. And other funds, there's 2 sanitation positions and 3 stormwater positions funded as well. Those are in other funds. So we're requesting your approval for 2024-119R.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. What is the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion for approval by Councilmember Urban. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Fletcher. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Clerk, will you please read item number 2 into the record?
The final public hearing for resolution number 2024-120R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, establishing a final budget for the City of St. Cloud for the fiscal year 2024-2025, the same being adopted following the adoption of the final millage rate for said period.
Jeff Cooper, Finance Director. As you can see, per Florida Statute 166.241, we're required to adopt a budget by ordinance or resolution, and the budget must balance revenues equals expenditures, which it does. Our total budget for the city this year is $273.5 million. As you can see, actually this year our largest source is capital project funds, thanks to the bond issue that you just approved, and which will help us with some much-needed public safety projects, 2 fire stations, the public safety complex, Phase 1, the 17th Street ball fields, Hopkins Park, as well as the property at 3101 Progress Lane, which we just closed on today. And then the second would be the general fund is $80.8 million. This is a breakdown of general fund revenue. Our 2 largest sources are, of course, the ad valorem proceeds from the millage rate you just approved, and the other financing sources come from OUC revenue sharing, approximately $13 million. Thank you very much. And Toho revenue sharing as well at approximately $2.5 million. And then we also have the utility tax fund, which contributes to that as well. This is the general fund. So general fund expenditures, as you can see, public safety between fire department and police department encompass almost 56% of our budget, as it should be. Government services is much of the rest of us, city manager, human resources, finance, procurement, community development, and so forth. And then Parks and Rec is about 12%. This is the departmental operating budget breakdown, and thanks to the city manager's leadership and my fellow directors, as I mentioned in the last hearing, we actually were able to decrease our operating budget, not counting salary and benefits, by 1%. Which is quite the feat given today's economic environment and, recent increase in prices across the board. So that's something that we're all very proud of. And of our budget, these are the areas, so we have key focus areas in our strategic plan now. So this budget supports diverse and magnetic economic development for these list of particular items. Much of that is centered around the downtown area and improving our economic development throughout the city. Effective community safety, as I mentioned, we have a large emphasis on community safety, which includes the public safety positions, the projects that you just funded, purchase of a new fire engine and ambulance, as well as a stormwater project at Tennessee Avenue and 17th Street. And high-performing government, as you can see, 23 total new positions, a new fire union contract, which I believe comes to you in the next meeting, the aforementioned pay increase for staff, security services for City Hall, an ERP consultant to get us a new financial system, and the other items listed up there. An effective transportation network funded project, which is near and dear to everyone's heart, is a list of projects there, paving, parking lot, Michigan Avenue pedestrian project, Canoe Creek widening, and so forth. And we're requesting approval of Resolution 2024-120R.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this budget item? If not, we'll have discussion or motion by council. I'd just like to say personally, thank you and our city manager and all of the staff and directors who worked so hard to put all this together. I know that's always a lot of work, but you've done an excellent job, and we certainly appreciate all the diligence you guys have exercised in putting that together. Do we have any discussion or motions from council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Fletcher. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
It was truly a team effort, and thank you very much, and I'm glad that it's over.
We start next month, Coop.
Did I overlook?
That's fine. You just echo. That's all.
Mr. Gilbert, you have some guests here tonight. Would you mind, you got your beautiful wife here, and you got some guests. Would you like to introduce your guests?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Well, my oldest and dearest friend, I don't say that because of his age, just of our tenure together.
I didn't know he had any friends, so I was
Yeah.
glad to meet one.
Mr. Brad Davis and his wife, Lon, that are both attorneys and both dear friends of mine for years, so thank you.
Welcome, and good to have you here.
Thank you for pointing out that attorneys can have friends.
It cost me.
All right, now, item number 3. Madam Clerk, you please read that into the record.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2024-30, an ordinance of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending City Code Chapter 18, Community Development, adopting a new mobility fee schedule adjustment and increasing mobility fees, finding that due to extraordinary circumstances, there is a present and immediate need to increase the mobility fees, providing for liberal construction, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance to the extent of such conflict, providing for suburbility, codification, administrative correction, and an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Dave Tomek with the City Manager's Office. We addressed this back in June. The mobility fee updates. Mobility fees, as you know, are a one-time charge assessed only against development, construction that creates additional impacts on the transportation system, whether it be a new or expanded development, building, or a change of land use to a more intense trip generation. In order to prepare for this meeting and for the adoption of the ordinance, we prepared the Osceola County and City of St. Cloud Joint Mobility Fee, Study Renewal, and Demonstrated Need Study to provide the correct and accurate figures for your maximum fee schedule. In addition, the Demonstrated Needs Study that's referred to, which was required by statutes in order to exceed the phase-in limitations of Florida statutes, was also prepared and is included in that report. So I won't go back to November of 2023, But in June, when we had our first reading on this ordinance, council did ask us to go back and work with the Greater Orlando Builders Association, GOBA, who hired a consultant to do a peer review. So we have participated in that. And so a lot of the changes you see in the proposed schedule and the study come from the collaboration to update that study. A lot of the changes are, in my mind, are the technical parts of formula inputs, data sources, just assumptions on the land uses, et cetera. We did look heavily at our land use maps that we're trying to promote commercial development in the future years so that we can actually reduce trip lengths. So some of that came about with the information. Some of the key changes, the standalone grocery store has been eliminated, pulled into the shopping center category, which actually helped reduce that rate. The affordable housing category has been eliminated only because we tried to establish an affordable housing rate. It actually came in higher than the multifamily rate. And since most affordable housing is multifamily, it wasn't a real incentive. So we got rid of that. Florida statute still gives us provisions to work with affordable housing through development agreements, et cetera. So at the end of the day, the affordable housing category just didn't work if we were trying to actually reduce the fees for that category. Fast food drive-through restaurants will be assessed at the shopping center rate as well when it's located within the center or is not parcel of a center. And then finally, we added 3 tables for the mixed-use conceptual master plan areas, east of Toho, south of Toho, and the Alligator Chain of Lakes, just to capture some of the nuances on the internal capture rates and bypass. Some of the ordinance highlights is we did provide for economic development incentives. We reference a resolution for the incentive package, which will be coming to you all shortly. And I think we gave you a draft before this agenda item. Also, there's an independent study option. This was in the last ordinance. We just figured we'd highlight it for you. That there is always the opportunity if somebody thinks that the fee is too high for their particular circumstances and uniqueness of their development, they can actually do their own independent study and work with staff to bring something to you that's different. We've recommended that the effective date for the mobility fees or the implementation date for mobility fees be moved back to June 18th. Statutes require at least 90 days if they're going up. The county went with the June 18th start date for the new fees. We figured we probably ought to be in line with that. The difference between the city and the county on that is that you just have to apply for the permit prior to June 18th. Keep your permit active and then keep your construction active through CO. And then you can have the current fees for that. The next couple of slides are the actual uses. So I'm prepared to go over the next hour or two to talk about each use if you'd like. Or we can just say that we'd be happy to talk about any use at the end of this and after the public input. Finally, our recommendation is approval for acceptance of the Osceola County and City of St. Cloud Joint Mobility Fee Study Renewal and Demonstrated Needs Study, and the amendment of Chapter 18, Community Development of the City Code, providing an effective date. We do request that council do as well, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the hard work that your staff did on this study and the hard work by some of our partners to help us kind of fine-tune this. So both Tammy Recke and Cameron Crandall from internal staffs, 18-plus months of hard work to bring you something that would be fair and would actually provide the needed infrastructure to support the growth into the future. We also have with us tonight for support Josh DeVries from Osceola County, as they were a great partner in preparing all this as well, and we always appreciate their effort. The folks from HNTV, Scott Zornick is here, in case you have any real technical questions that you don't want me answering.
Okay. At this time, we will entertain public comment. Twiz? LaSwain? I'll say that right? I never do get it right.
You were very close, Mayor. Twiz Liza Swain, 1105 Crossbury Parkway, Kissimmee. Good evening, council members. I serve as the Chief Executive Officer of the Osceola County Association of Realtors, representing nearly 6,000 realtors and business partners in the region. And while we understand the need for mobility fees to improve roads, we're here today to voice our concerns about the mobility fee structure as proposed and the serious economic impact it will have on our members and, more importantly, their clients. Our realtors work every day with families who want to own homes in communities just like St. Cloud, especially first-time buyers. For many of these clients, affordability is already a significant barrier, and this substantial increase in the mobility fee will only be passed down to the home buyer, making home ownership more difficult to attain. While the rising cost of living, many residents are already stretched thin, and these fees will drive up home prices further, making it harder for clients to enter the market. This directly affects our members. When potential home buyers are priced out of the market, it limits the ability of realtors to serve their clients. On the commercial side, the economic impact could equally be damaging. High mobility fees will deter businesses and developers from investing in St. Cloud, sending them to neighboring areas with lower costs. This stifles job creation, reduces the availability of local services, and ultimately slows economic growth. Without robust commercial development, we lose the very infrastructure and economic base that can sustain a community in its future. We respectfully urge the council to reconsider this fee structure and reduce the costs so the fee is fair and equitable, or at a minimum, phase it in over time to mitigate the economic impact. Thank you for your time. We want to work with you to find a balanced solution that ensures growth without placing burdens on home buyers, realtors, and the builders. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Maria LeBron.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Maria LeBron, 1638 Kendrick Drive, Kissimmee. I'm here today as a commercial realtor in the community, and I'd like to address the impact of mobility fees. While these fees are essential for infrastructure improvements, requiring full payment up front can create a significant financial burden for developers. This often prevents them from securing the necessary financing and can ultimately slow down growth and investment in our community. I propose a phased-in approach to these fees, allowing them to be paid over time. This would reduce the financial strain on developers while still ensuring that infrastructure funding is maintained. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Teresa O'Doherty? You guys help me when I get these names wrong, okay?
Good evening, and you're not the only one that gets it wrong, so it's okay.
Thank you.
Teresa O'Doherty, 2 Macon Way, St. Cloud. I am a long-time resident and property owner in St. Cloud, and currently I am a commercial real estate agent. And this will have valid consequences on the commercial industry. And I urge you to just reconsider what you're considering here and proposing for the mobility fees. The fees are extraordinarily high and will impact our industry immensely. So I appreciate your time and thank you all. Okay.
And thank you.
Okay.
Joe Johnson. I got your.
Good evening. My name is Joe Johnson, 6735 Midland Drive, St. Cloud. I understand and appreciate the efforts that you've all put in. The staff has spent time on this, and I understand the need for additional funds. We all want to see our improvements to our roads and have traffic alleviated. However, one of, I think, the things that you should be considering as leaders of this community, as leaders, we all generally get put in positions that sometimes we have to make unpopular decisions. I understand that completely. I serve as the Orlando Productivity Director for Avanti Way and have many agents that I take care of and have to make difficult decisions for, and also have conversations about affordability with housing. So one of the things as a leader, though, I think that you owe it to the people that put you in these positions to make sure that the decision you make, even though it might be a little unpopular, will at least be more respected and understood if you use the right analytics and the proper data and all the right information in order to come to that decision. So I say that because the current study that has been referenced, although so many hours put into it, I think we can agree there's some flaws in that study. The peer review does show significant flaws in the calculations and the amounts. So I would ask you to consider making a reduction if you're going to approve the mobility fee, and use that peer review as more accurate data in order to implement these fees, with maybe a suggestion of 70 to 75% increase in the current fee instead of such a dramatic increase, especially with single family, because we all know that will get passed down to the consumer. And then as consumers are looking forward to maybe building a new home or developers are coming in, that mobility fee is going to be so substantial that it's not going to happen at all. And then the effect that's going to happen on the people in the construction business trying to make a living, electricians, plumbers, as that construction slows down, it's just going to have a domino effect going forward. So I'd ask you to consider a significant reduction if you're going to approve this mobility fee, and as well, make it a little bit easier if we're not going to see the reduction, or in addition to the reduction, maybe a 2-year or 3-year phase-in plan. Thank you so much for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Dirk Webb.
Mayor, council members, this has been obviously a hot topic for some time now. And as one of the primary voices of the business community, it has come to my attention that because of action already taken, we're already starting to see a pullback from projects. That's a concern to me. Jobs, businesses, and so that is a large concern to me. As a previous speaker said, a little concerned about the data that informed this particular proposal, and so the chamber would like to caution you to revisit that again. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Ricardo Rodriguez.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Ricardo Rodriguez, Greater Orlando Builders Association, 1953 Clayton Heritage Way. I'm the advisor to the association on governmental and industry needs. GOBA and the home building industry certainly understand and acknowledge the city has infrastructure needs, and that mobility fees are part of addressing those needs. It is not our intention to oppose funding for the city's infrastructure. We only ask that the mobility fee increases are fair, proportional, and supported by the data. As you're aware, due to the abnormally large fees increases proposed in the original study conducted by HNTB on behalf of the county and the city, GOBA retained a mobility fee consultant, New Urban Concepts, to conduct a peer review of the HNTB study. New Urban Concepts specializes in mobility fee studies, and for years has successfully passed and implemented them throughout the state, including recently here in several jurisdictions in Central Florida. Through the extensive peer review, New Urban Concepts documented numerous deficiencies, miscalculations, and flaws in HNTB's study, and concluded that as a result, the study was proposing fee increases likely 50% higher than they should be if properly calculated. Several of the issues and deficiencies documented by New Urban Concepts in their peer review were eventually even acknowledged by HNTB as they revised their original study. As it stands today, however, the study, even in revised form, still contains deficiencies documented in the peer review and is still overcharging new development both on the residential and commercial side beyond what is justified or supported by the data. Further, these excessive increases proposed upon residential and commercial will make it extremely difficult to develop in the city, where housing, restaurants, or other commercial products the city and its residents may desire may not happen. As a result of the proposed increases and likely to have a detrimental effect on the economy. In fact, it is reported already commercial projects that have invested millions of dollars are already being canceled, scaled back, or strongly reconsidered due to the anticipated size of these proposed fee increases, a trend that obviously will continue if adopted. Again, we fully understand the need for fee increases to address the city's infrastructure needs, but based on the documented deficiencies that still exist in the study and the potential negative economic consequences of the increases, we urge the council not to move forward with the fees as proposed. Instead, we strongly encourage the council to consider fee increases in line with where they should be if they were properly calculated, as well as a phased-in approach for their implementation to minimize the negative economic effects by providing projects and businesses the time and ability to adequately digest and plan for them, so that the city can address its infrastructure needs while also avoiding undue harm to its economy and its residents. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. I received a request via the internet for Matt Smith. Are you here?
I am.
Oh, thank you.
I was the only one that did it online. Okay.
Good.
Matt Smith, 102 West Pine Lock Avenue, Orlando, 32806, I guess. Sorry. First of all, thank you. Thanks to each one of you, elected officials, and I think you'd agree, good Lord, thank you, maybe even more to your staff. I mean, this is a complex issue, and I can't tell you the benefit of being able to pick up a phone and have someone speak to you relatively quickly, the ability to send an email and have someone return it quickly. It ain't like that everywhere, okay? I've worked all around the state. It's not like that everywhere. So thanks to all of you. It's a difficult issue. So I work for Center Lake Properties, which owns Center Lake Ranch, about a 2,000-acre project in the city. And then 1,000 of it is wetlands, but it's an exciting project. It's why I work where I work. I came there to work through this project. It's a master plan community, and I mention that only because to me that means it's quality, right? It takes many, many years to imagine what you're going to do, right? To start planning it, do some financial analysis to figure out if you can do it, then go through the entitlement process, right? And then you're really designing and engineering, right? All of those take a long time, but it's important because we don't want, code minimum landscaping and hardscape along our main streets. We just don't want it. It wouldn't be any fun for me. You guys wouldn't love it. It wouldn't preserve quality long term. So that's why I do what I do, and I think we've done a good job thus far. If you haven't been out there lately, please come out and see it. I'm going to skip part of my comments and just get down to the quick impacts, and I'll also leave you with an ask. The impacts community-wide, I mean, look, you're doubling, tripling, or multiplying by 10 some fees. It's going to impact businesses. It's going to impact people. You guys know that. But I'll give you a couple of examples for us. For us, we're working through our current phase, working with staff. Spoke to them as recently as yesterday on one day of notice to Dave, and really appreciate that. For us, we want to continue to do what we're doing. We've got the first phase that's rocking and rolling. I want to do the next phase, and I want to do the final phase. Here's where we are. The county framework roads we're building, about $50 million for our next phases. $50 million. The impact of these mobility fees on our project, about $45 million extra dollars. That's not the fees we'll pay, that's the additional fees we'll pay under the ordinance. My ask is please keep working with us the way you've been working with us. It's difficult, there are gives and takes, but please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Please step forward, state your name, address, fill out a form. Thank you.
Good evening, Joe Thacker, 17 South Orlando Avenue, Kissimmee. I think that the biggest problem isn't the raising of the impact, the mobility fees. It's the process that we went through. Because what we did is we got information at the last minute. We found out the information was flawed. We gave ideas and information to the consultants. They redid the study or changed the study. We got the information at the last minute, and we know there's still flaws. So what I'm asking for you to do today is to take the time to do the study with another independent consultant that doesn't have any kind of relationship with the county or the city, because I don't think there's any confidence in the study. I also think you need to do a full business impact analysis. It wasn't done. You don't know what these impact fee increases are going to do. You have no idea because the study doesn't include it. So how can you say, okay, we're going to go forward with these increases and not understand what it's going to do? I'll tell you what it's done since last week. My clients have already lost 2 contracts, and that's in a week. Gone. So it's going to happen. Now, is it going to stop growth? No, we know it's not. We know that people are still going to come, but it's certainly going to slow it down, especially the commercial. The other thing is it takes a long, long time to get through your pipeline, years. So you have people that are in your pipeline now that have been working feverishly to get through everything they need to. They're not going to be able to pull building permits by June. There's no way. So they have budgeted these projects for years, and it's not going to work anymore. But they're already in the system, so they don't have really any choice but to go. They're already pregnant, right? So they're going to have to keep going. So the other thing is you all have the flexibility to do, you don't have to follow what the county did. You're not required to do that. And I would say that, you do what you all think is best, but take into consideration all the information that you've heard tonight from the other speakers. So I do appreciate your role. I do appreciate what you do. I have the opportunity to be in front of you a lot. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thacker. Would anyone else like to speak to the council? Anyone else? Mr. Tomac, would you like to address any of the concerns that you've heard at this point?
Yes, sir. There's just a couple of things. One of the concerns was the impact on affordable housing. There's already provisions for folks that really want to develop affordable housing for us to work with them with the developers agreement. First-time home buyers, the reason for the new fees is for new development, new growth. That does nothing to existing housing, smaller housing that's already been there that can be rehabbed, et cetera. So there are more opportunities than just new construction to deal with affordable housing and first-time home buyers. So we don't want to discourage that, but we do think we can broaden our horizons on what that product actually looks like. The comment was a concern with the data, and I know we've worked hard with the folks from GOBA and their peer review. There are folks that do these kinds of studies that'll disagree on formulas, that'll disagree on where to get the data, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the data always is done by a reputable source, and then the formulas apply those. I'd like to have the folks from HNTB give you just a small example of some of the changes we made based on it, and the assurance that what we ended up with is fair and proportionate and meets your statutory requirements. So Scott Zornick is from HNTV, and he can address the actual study in a very short period of time.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I know this is an important issue. It's a very important for the growth of the community. It's sometimes.
Could you state your name and address?
Oh, I'm
for
sorry,
record?
Scott Zornick. Address 2600 Chippewa Trail, Maitland, Florida, 32707. So Dave asked us to look at what changed in the study. So there was an original study done. That's what GOBA had reviewed. We took their comments. We went back into our study. I should point out that the original study that we provided, the draft study, used the exact same methodology that GOBA's consultant had used for the county in 2015. So there was no difference other than they applied an arbitrary factor to reduce some of the mobility fees. Absolutely arbitrary. There was no justification in the study for it. When we moved forward, we wanted to have a study that we could substantiate every factor that was used in the study and move forward. So the mobility fee is very formulaic. There's several factors that go into it, one of them being ITE trip generation. That is a standard factor. You can use the documentation, look it up in the books. I will tell you what we did do was we looked at a way to adjust that factor in a way that was preferable for the mobility fee and the end users of that mobility fee. So when you look at trip generation, you can look at it on a weekday trip generation. You can find trip generation for weekends. We took a weighted average, so we took the Monday through Friday. That was 5/7 of the trips, 1/7 on a Saturday and 1/7 on a Sunday. In most cases, that actually reduced the trip. Dave brought up the point of removing the affordable housing. That was one thing that there's very little data out there right now from ITE regarding affordable housing, and what is out there shows a very high trip generation on the weekends. To the point, say a single-family home on average is 9 to 10 trips. The affordable housing was showing 14 trips on a Sunday, which is off, but it was also based on 2 studies, whereas most things are based off of 10, 15, 20 studies. The other thing we looked at in the conversations we had with GOBA was there's 2 data sets for the National Household Travel Survey. There's a 2017 set and a 2022 set. Now, part of the mobility fee effort is to use the most recent and localized data. So the 2017 set had Florida-specific data, but it was from 2017. The 2022 set looked at the entire southeast of the United States, but it was from 2022. It was a judgment call on to which to use. GOBA made the recommendation to use the 2022 data. We adjusted the study to use that data. I can tell you that the factors in the 2022 study that were pulled out of it, in some cases were higher and had that level of influence on the mobility fee. We looked at trip length, another thing that comes out of the National Household Travel Survey. We went with the 2022 data. We also looked at vehicle occupancy. So when you do a mobility fee, because it's mobility, it's not just vehicles, so we're looking at the community as a whole, and so you convert the mobility into people trips, person trips. With that, if you're taking a car, you have to make an assumption on the number of passengers in that car. The 2022 survey had a higher or a lower occupancy rate of a vehicle, so that had impacts on the study, and that actually causes the study to increase. And then the other big influence, and really, what really influenced the need to update the mobility fee was just the actual construction cost. Construction cost has gone up 50% over the last 2 years. And so what we had done is we took actual projects done in Osceola County for certain types of projects. So there was really 3 main projects within the mobility fee that we looked at cost for. And that was a new 2-lane roadway, a new 4-lane roadway, and widening of 2-lane roadways to 4-lane roadways, or 4-lane roadways to 6-lane roadways. So I'm sorry, there was 4. So we looked at actual Osceola County projects based here. We also, for the new 2-lane roadway, data did not exist specific to this local area, so we used information from FDOT. They have standard numbers associated with construction projects. We use that for their 2023 costs, except FDOT does not build, their costs are not complete street type facilities. So they have bike lanes, but they're only 4-foot bike lanes. They have travel lanes, but they're only 11-foot travel lanes. So those were adjusted in the cost calculations, which increased from the standard DOT cost to what the regular cost of the project was. And then, of course, indexing. These were 2023 numbers. We indexed them to 2024 using the National Highway Construction Cost Index, which is a standard practice in our business when coming up with construction cost. And the reality is, as you move forward, if this ordinance were to be adopted and we move forward with the new mobility fees, you're already behind the curve. Because if construction costs continue to go up the way they're going up today, it could be, the cost could be 20% higher next year and the year after that. And the mobility fee is set based on a 2024 construction cost. So when we look at 25, 26, 27, we could see significant increase if the trend continues. And right now, I don't see there's not a foreseeable end to that increase in cost for construction, unfortunately. And outside of that, it's very formulaic. You
Okay.
take all of those parameters, and it's a multiplication process to get to the end for what the mobility fee is.
Right. Do you have anything else, Dave?
No, just, there's I guess the criticism from one consultant to another, that happens all the time. We feel like our study passes muster, and, it's probably not perfect if it's, sorry, Dan, if you let 4 attorneys look at the same thing, they might give you 4 different opinions. I know it's hard to believe. I think the same thing holds true for some of the consultants as they do their work. They take great pride in it. So if it's not exactly the way they want,
All right.
but that's it. We will continue to work with Pine Lock. They're a great development in the city, and we definitely want to make sure that we are very fair to them
All right.
and that they can continue to be successful.
Thank you. If you guys will stand by, we'll have discussion and our motion by council. Councilmember Fletcher, I believe your light was on first.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that this decision is going to be one of the most important decisions that, I make during my term here, or our term as we're, with this seated council. It's going to have huge ramifications on the economic future of our city and our transportation network. I did want to give a few shout outs and thank you to Dave, to Cameron, Veronica, Kelly, in our city manager's office, as well as Tammy. I've had the opportunity to work with them this week to gather all of the information to be able to make an informed decision this evening. I've also had the opportunity to speak with Twiz over at the Realtors Association, Lee with the Homeowners Association, and received letters from the Apartment Association and information both from the Osceola Chamber and the St. Cloud Chamber, and what the effects of the decision that we make tonight will have on us here locally. The studies go out and all of that stuff. I want to just make sure in the decision that we make tonight that it's not going to it's going to end up on the bottom line for our residents, while also battling the infrastructure challenges that we have here locally. So that's really what we're deciding, is how much are we going to fund in infrastructure and how much do we want to affect the commercial real estate and development market, as well as, the residential side and the cost of housing. The money that is set aside in our mobility fee calculation, I believe, if the interlocal agreement that's approved later on, 19% of that is going to be sent over to the county based on a priority network that we've coordinated with the county. We adopted our transportation master plan at the last meeting, so that had a huge effect on it. The county, adopted at 21,000. The proposed city, what we're looking at for single family, that is 17,000. I'm happy to hear that the ability or the implementation, you're able to submit the permit right up. So the implementation date is June 18th. They can submit a building permit on June 17th. So with that, I had the opportunity to speak with Dan in the city attorney's office. And bear with me here, Mayor, I would like to make a motion, obviously, with discussion, because I know everybody up here is going to want to discuss, is I personally would like to adopt 85% of what the study came back at, which would put single-family residential at $14,501 on a single-family home, while also reducing 15% down the line on both industrial, commercial, and all the other categories. With that being said, putting that into a motion in preparation for this meeting, I had asked if Dan could draft a resolution. So if the motion would be adopt at 100% contingent on an approval of a resolution that reduces it to 85% implementation with all of the other items in here. And then we can see the effect that it has on the economic conditions here locally. And if we need to bring it back and adjust it, we can do it at that time. So that really is all the comments that I have, and I want to thank all of the stakeholders for the amount of time that we've spent this week on the phone. Some I've bothered more than others, and our staff has done an absolutely amazing job. So that's where I'm at on this.
I'll come back to you for a motion after we've had discussion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Gilbert.
Well, thank you, Mayor. We, the city, have been working on this over 18 months, and it's been difficult to say the least, because nobody wants to have any raises. However, it hasn't been raised in the last 7 years. So we're talking about a 4-year gap here, but there's actually a 7-year gap that the mobility fee has not been raised. And I don't think any of the speakers here tonight said, hey, council, you thinking about raising this mobility fee? But then when it is raised, they say, hey, you can't do that. Infrastructure cost has risen, they say 50%, but at some expectancy, over 125% of cost of doing business. The citizens that this council services right now, I would estimate about 70,000 people. And I believe it's my job to do the commitment in their best interest, the people that are actually citizens today. And we also focus on the folks that do business here that are out of town, but we don't want to do it on the expense of our citizens. I received hundreds of emails, hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of meetings, and I've answered 90% of it. I did answer every individual email that came to me, but I did get a bunch of emails that says, Councilmember Gilbert, I am writing you from such and such organization to express my concerns regarding the mobility fee. 70 emails with that, either they're form letters or they're plagiarism, because they're not individual emails. They were cut and paste, hey, send the email to the council, and the email wasn't an individual email, it was from an organization with special interests. In the private business, which we own a few of them, we can raise costs each year. The Florida laws and statutes don't let us do that. We can do that every 4 years, and then we have 3 years behind, so we're 7 years for raising costs of mobility fees. I also get hundreds of calls and talk to a lot of people that are citizens here that are worried about the congestion and the cost here now. Those are the people that elected me in this position to represent them to control growth. I don't have any tools in my toolkit to do that. This is a tool in the toolkit to do that. This is the only tool I have in 2 years to help the citizens that are here now to get better roads, infrastructure, and eliminate some of the congestion. In the city government, it's mobility fees. If it'd be 3.5% a year times 7 years, we'd still be 50% behind in the cost of doing business. Those who elected me trusted me when I said we're going to help control growth. This, I think, is a tool. How do we catch up from the 7 years that we don't have mobility fees? Well, I think they're called exceptional circumstances in they need special attention. I can't look in a rearview mirror, but I can look in a windshield moving forward and provide the 70,000 plus residents in our community the life and amenities that they grew up in, that they have, that they're losing today. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Councilman Urban.
Thank you. We're going to sound like a broken record up here, but I just wanted to just first give recognition to our staff, our city manager Veronica, assistant city manager Dave, who unfortunately is leaving us soon, and Tammy and Cameron, everybody on staff who worked so hard on this. We tasked them with nearly the impossible task, which was, hey, help us fix this transportation issue that we are all dealing with in this city and that our residents call us about every day. And they have worked very hard on that. So I just want to express my appreciation to them. Now we on the council are tasked with making a decision on this. And I just wanted to, express some of my concerns. There's no doubt we have a transportation crisis in St. Cloud and in Osceola County. It certainly warrants extraordinary circumstances, I would say. Nobody's satisfied with the status quo. However, I do have significant concerns over the negative consequences that we will face by taking such a drastic approach. So many times those of us in government are quick to implement new taxes and fees without taking a step back and thinking about the implications it will have on the business climate and our local economy. So first, to me, the most alarming and concerning factor that I just don't think this study fully grasps is the negative economic impacts it will have on commercial development. Our city has a massive deficit in its commercial to residential ratio. The proposed fee increase will have significant adverse effects to our city's ability to bring quality commercial projects and jobs for our residents. Extremely high commercial mobility fees can deter businesses from investing in our community, leading to a slowdown in local job creation and economic growth. When businesses face increased costs, they will almost certainly choose to build in areas with more favorable financial conditions. A significant majority of our residents have to drive out of this city to earn a paycheck or a living wage. Some people drive 2-hour commutes and jump on the turnpike just to go to work. I fear that if we want to remain a bedroom community and our residents have 2-hour commutes to work every day, that this impact fee will essentially guarantee the status quo. Secondly, in full disclosure, I work in the building industry. I have a deep understanding on how these fees directly affect our small businesses and residents. This will undoubtedly disproportionately hurt small local businesses, while the national builders continue to thrive. Large national builders, which in my opinion contribute most of the transportation issues in our city and county today, have the resources to absorb these costs. This could effectively create a monopoly in the housing market where only the largest developers and largest developments survive. This limits competition and stifles innovation as well as diversity in our housing options for our residents. This also affects jobs, as many of the residents who are lucky enough to not have a 2-hour commute work in the construction trades, and they'll surely be affected as well. So, my request, I think Councilmember Fletcher's request is a little bit more palatable, but we're facing this deadline. I don't think we should rush such a drastic decision like this. I would like to take a step back, look at some alternative studies that specifically examine the commercial to residential deficit that we face here in our city with jobs. We need to look out for that and how that's going to affect our jobs specifically for our city. And if we can't do that, I would at least like to phase it in very conservatively, kind of similar to how the Federal Reserve phases in their interest rates so they don't shock the economy. We need to wait and look and see how this basically affects our our local economy step by step instead of all at once. So that would be my request, and I'll yield back to you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm certainly concerned about the negative impact of such a large across-the-board increase. I think increasing the cost for first-time home buyers with limited resources is a significant issue. I think how significant this impact will be on commercial developers and residential developers will be significant. It not only impacts them, but it impacts, if they cut back on the work, job opportunities. And I think we will have to deal with the issue of investors walking away from current and future projects. I think that's just the nature of impact fees. I'm certainly concerned about the impact that this will have on developers wanting to invest in St. Cloud, but that's going to happen with any city. Most likely the county can weather this better than we can. They certainly have the advantage of having Margaritaville, Champions Gate, Osceola Heritage Park, Disney, Silver Spurs, the bridge, Neo City to help them weather this storm and continue to bring in commercial growth. So I'm certainly concerned about all those things, but I think something has to be done. If this room right now was filled with city residents, I'm fairly confident that if we were to take a vote from them overwhelmingly, the majority would say, hey, don't even increase them that more. Can you increase them more if it'll stop all the growth and to help with infrastructure? We certainly need to improve and add more infrastructure. And unfortunately, that takes money. It takes a lot of money to do that. And we certainly need to do something decisive to help offset the cost of roadways. I thought it was interesting having talked to different builders and realtors. We definitely, I found it interesting that most of the builders and realtors and a couple of engineers admitted that we need to do something. I kind of came tonight wanting to propose that we consider a phasing in these fees. I certainly don't think the fee is unreasonable in the long term. I think what Councilman Fletcher has proposed, setting up some kind of discount in order to lessen the immediate impact that this would have on developers would certainly be something we ought to consider tonight. And so I think he's come up with a viable concept I would certainly encourage our council to consider. And I'd like to ask our city attorney if you could just speak to this thing, how we could approve this rate, but then set up a discount that could either be changed one way or the other later.
Well, historically, since the city adopted its first impact fees, periodically there's been adoptions of the impact fees based on the studies and the mobility fees based on the studies that have been presented and based on the analysis by the experts. And the council has adopted those in full. Then by essentially a subsequent action through resolution, the council has historically at times adopted a discount. So the general premise and process is you adopt the ordinance that approves in this case, the mobility fee study and the attendant mobility fee rates, and then you would, by a subsequent action, essentially adopt a discount amount off of that. So the rates are adopted at the full maximum amount that's contained in the mobility fee study, but the council adopts a discount which stays in place until the council elects it's no longer in place. And so it does require, historically it's been done two separate actions, and that's how you would do it, and then it would just amount to the council coming into some agreement as to what the discount would be.
Is there any other discussion? Mr. Fletcher, I'll yield back to you.
So at this point, I would like to make a motion to propose that we adopt the full amount contingent upon the approval of a subsequent resolution discounting the rate by 15%. That's good enough?
Yeah.
The only other thing that I would ask council is if they believe 85% or the discount of 15% is too much or too less.
Make your motion first, I'll entertain a second, then we'll have discussion, it can be changed.
Yes, Mayor. So adoption at 100%, contingent on a subsequent resolution with a discount of 15%. That is my motion, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion as stated by Councilman Fletcher. Do I have a second? And then we will entertain discussion.
Second.
We have a second from Councilmember Gilbert. Mr. Urban, Councilman Urban.
Would the council consider 75% the first year, 85% after that? Just open for discussion.
Councilmember Matheny.
Aye. I don't think so. For me, like, not 75%. I mean, we're already delaying it till June, and then we're already discounting it. I mean, I was more inclined to adopt it as is, but based on the comments, I mean, I'll support the 85%.
Any other discussion? Are you guys happy with the percentage? I know you're not. Are you ready to vote? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
No.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
A reluctant aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you.
And Mayor, since as you point out, Councilmember Fletcher did talk with me about this beforehand, so we understood this might be a possibility. So we actually did draft a resolution. I think it would be appropriate just so we clearly understand to do that. The clerk has a form resolution that could be read into record, and then the council could take some action on it. And it does provide for basically a 15% reduction. So the adopted fees would be charged at 85%. All fees would be across the board for all fees.
Madam Clerk, will you please read that into the record?
Public hearing for resolution number 2024-176R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, relating to ordinance number 2024-30, whose subject is mobility fees, and adopting a discount percentage, providing for conflict, providing for an effective date.
Do you have any
No, that's
discussion?
it. That's consistent with what it is, so you just need a motion to approve.
Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Councilmember Fletcher. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Gilbert. Have any discussion? Do I need to ask for public
Yeah,
comment?
you should ask
Would
for
anyone in the public like to speak
This
to
is
that
only
resolution?
as to the discount piece.
The discount.
Joe Thacker, 17 South Orlando Avenue. I'd just like to see a copy of the resolution.
Joe, you can have this one. It has a typo in it, but
Might have a typo.
This is ordinance.
Oh,
This is
I'm
not the
sorry.
same thing.
Bismail, before we, can you just put the copy up on the screen there?
Please. do so.
I'm sorry, I thought. No, it was, no. Here, Bismail. Just throw that up there. It has a minor typo in it, but no one will see it. So the effective date of the discount would be consistent with the effective date of the charging of the increased mobility fees as put forth in the ordinance. Provides for an 15% discount, charged at 85%.
you like to speak? Yes, you may.
Hi, Matt Smith again. Thank you for the extra couple seconds. I wanted to point out a couple of things. Understand, please, that as a project that has county framework roads in it, we have to build those roads as we've discussed. So when we're talking about road costs increasing by 50%.
Mr. Smith, the discussion regarding the mobility fee study was done on the last time. This
Yes.
item only has to do with this particular discount.
Okay, so, well, I guess my point is that the cost being considered here for some projects that are building much bigger roads is materially more than a 15% discount. That's how I'd phrase it. I appreciate the thought and the spirit of that. We're just dealing with some numbers that are pretty incredible, and it just makes it hard to keep projects moving forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And unfortunately, if the only manner that a discount like this can be implemented, if it's done not project by project, it's done based on the study. And so basically, why the action is we're adopting the study at 100%, but we are willing at this point, for a variety of reasons, many of which were brought up tonight, to say we're only going to collect 85% of it for a period of time across the board.
Would anyone else like to speak to this?
Joe Johnson again, thank you. So I don't know if it's appropriate, for one, the 15% I think is probably a little bit light. I would like to see a 20 or 25%, of course. However, many of you discussed the possibility of a phase-in. I don't know if this is addressable in this or it has to be added, but I think I would highly recommend consideration of that, to even if you just go with this 15% discount, then the phase-in would be a little bit more palatable and less impactful on the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this resolution? If not, then we'll have continued discussion by council. We have a motion. Do we have any other discussion?
I would just say I would be in favor of the phase-in, but I know I'm outnumbered on that, so I'll yield back.
Do we have any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Find out where I'm at. Item number 4, under public hearings, please. Could you read that into the record?
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2024-66, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending Chapter 3, Performance and Siting Standards, Article 6, Commercial Zoning Districts, Section 3.6.5.K.6.A, and Chapter 4, Site Design and Development Standards by adding a new article title, Article 10, Mural Arts, providing for mural art requirements for certain non-residential developments, and also includes applicability, suburbility, conflict, codification, and effective date.
Good evening, Melissa Dunklin, Community Development Director. This item before you is a request to amend the Land Development Code to allow the installation of mural art in certain areas in the city. Murals create unique and attractive spaces while providing a legacy of artworks to be enjoyed by future generations. The purpose of this article is to allow integration of murals into public or semi-public spaces and establish the criteria for installation. Murals are currently permitted to be installed in the CBD1 and CBD2 zoning districts. This article will expand it to be permitted in the CRA area and along any arterial roadways. Of note, since the publication of the agenda, we added clarifying language to ensure that murals were only permitted to be installed on new or existing non-residential development. So in 2 different areas, we just added the word non-residential. We also established a definition of mural and required that the color scheme be complementary and harmonious with the exterior colors of the building. Regarding design standards, the murals shall not cover or detract from architectural features, shall not cover doors and windows, must be designed to enhance the city's unique character and quality of life, and shall be done in a manner that does not damage the building. The permitted materials are paint or other artistic mediums such as tile, mosaic, original digital image, or low relief sculpture. The size of the murals are limited to 100% wall coverage for structures up to 2 stories and 50% wall coverage for structures greater than 2 stories. Properties within the Historic Preservation District or the CRA may require additional approvals, and any text shall not be more than 10% of the mural art. Staff recommends approval with the noted changes, and as a reminder, since the publication of the agenda, we added the clarifying language to ensure that murals were only permitted to be installed on new or existing non-residential buildings. At their meeting on September 17th, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended approval. Likewise, it is requested that City Council approve ordinance number 2024-66 with the changes as noted by staff. This is a city-initiated land development code amendment, therefore staff is available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny for approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Fletcher. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item number 5 has been pulled. Brings us to council action number 2, please.
Resolution number 2024-127R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, authorizing the mayor to enter into an interlocal agreement between Osceola County, Florida, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, and the City of St. Cloud, Florida, a Florida municipal corporation, regarding roadways, maintenance, mobility fee, administration, and transportation infrastructure, and providing an effective date.
They didn't threaten you out there, did they?
No, you guys are going like really fast. I was just trying to get a drink of water. Hi, thank you. I'm Dave Tomac with the City Manager's Office, Mayor, council members. So this is kind of the final piece of the 4 transportation pieces of the puzzle that we've been getting to you all this month. Again, a culmination of 18-plus months. Working hand in hand between your internal staff and the county's internal staff. I can tell you, to try to get agencies together that serve the public and have real issues of public service and trying to address the big issues, the staffs from both sides did an incredible job, because what roads do we own and maintain? What roads does the county own and maintain? If there's a deficiency, how do we fund it? All those things were addressed in this agreement. The county and city go way back. I think 2006 we started working on interlocal agreements. And as recently as like 2014, we did a joint planning area agreement, establishing the area that the city wanted to annex, primarily based on your utility service area. So this update actually takes those initial agreements to the next level. We decided to sit down and really look at the detailed issues. We put procedures in here for how do we address annexations and the actual transfer process. the city and county agreed on kind of a service level for the roads that come over. We talked about not trying to require either jurisdiction to do things where it's a substandard condition. We can work with the residents with a funding source to do that over time. We don't have to bring it up to current standards, nor do we require the county to bring it up to current standards before we'll take it. We do have a PCR. We try to establish if they're paved roads that they at least be like at a 75, because there's an 18-month lull between the time we annex and the time we actually take over the roads. There's some time for that to be budgeted. So we've tried to look at all those things, and both jurisdictions worked well doing it. So this deals with transportation. For those of you who like to read everything, I apologize for putting all of the old agreements as exhibits. So the thought was, we've been working for so long, one document should be like a compendium of all that's been agreed to, so that it's all in one spot. So I do apologize for that, but it makes it easier for staff over time to actually implement it. Again, 2006, y'all have been working together. We've been working hard to address specific issues. We actually have a process now whereby the city collects impact fees for parks, the county collects impact fees for parks, but for the JPA area, the county sends us a check every 3 months, because we're planning for those parks to make sure that we can meet the future needs of those areas as they annex, and the county's actually giving us the funding to do that. Transportation's kind of similar. We're looking at how do we fund all these roads. You know, folks are going to be annexing into the city. There are both city and county roads that need to be built with new development. We've both been doing individual agreements. We've actually, with this agreement, agreed to do what we call tri-party agreements, which is the city and county in on each of those agreements, so that we make sure that, you know, they're fair. To Mr. West's point, for like the bigger roads in the county, you know, they're not going to get full mobility fee credits. Just the difference between what they'd be required by code and what's required to upgrade the capacity for our purposes. All of those things can then transfer across. The joint mobility fee study, we've committed to working together again in 3 or 4 years to update it. So hopefully these processes get simpler as time goes on. So we talked about the city street system and the county road system. There's actually a document that provides the criteria for which roads are to be owned and maintained by the city, which ones are to be owned and maintained by the county. It's pretty basic. If it's a local street in the city, we own and maintain it. For like the annexation purposes, there's like a 50% thing. Once we get past 50% of frontage on those roads, we basically take them over within 18 months. We've been trying to annex in a much more holistic way, so basically covering both the enclaves and with the new developments, taking in the whole areas at one time. So we've been working through that. We talked about maintenance transfer and what that process is. We will actually notify the county when we're ready to annex areas. Then the county looks at what roads are affected by it. We share lists of which roads would be transferred, which ones would not, and then we look at the PCR rating, pavement condition rating. So to make sure that if there's anything below, you know, that's starting to fail as far as the asphalt goes, that we can actually plan for that. And then after the annexation, then we make provisions to go ahead and take over maintenance. And it's done with the annexation ordinance for us, what's going to be transferred. And then when it's time to be transferred, we do that by the city manager and the county manager letter. They trade signatures. Development reviews. With the approval of the ILA, We're going to go with the tri-party agreements so that we both know what's getting approved and what the funds are being used for, so that we can make sure that the priorities stay priorities. As far as like land development code updates, within a year, we're going to look at both of our codes and then try to make the changes to make us consistent so that, you know, we're not having typical sections that are a couple of feet off with each jurisdiction so that when they annex, we got issues. So we're going to be doing all that as part of this. Capital improvement plans, no. Mobility fee collection. You probably heard enough about administration and credit issuance on that stuff, but we're still responsible for our own mobility fee process. With each tri-party agreement, whatever credits are issued, we will monitor and maintain those that are done in the city. The county monitors and maintains for those in the county. Capital improvement plans, there's an actual process similar to what you guys do with the school district. Right now, the school district, both the city and the county and the city of Kissimmee work with the school district staff, and every year they come up with, you know, a list of which schools are going to be done and like how that affects each other and, you know, what we need to do from the impacts. We're going to be doing the same thing with our capital improvement plans with roads now. So staffs will get together, they'll work through it, figure out what changes need to be made, so that way when you all approve your capital improvements plan, you'll make sure that the right roads are in the right order. One of the things that for the funding is the county has agreed to look at the tax increment finance. And so I'm old, so we used to call it the TIF. I think they probably call it something else by now. But it's the same basis as a CRA, where for the JPA area, they will set a benchmark, a baseline, and then as growth occurs in values, they'll set aside a certain percentage of that to actually fund the roads that we're making our priorities in the JPA. In return, we did an analysis that showed that some of the roads that we're collecting mobility fees for are the larger roads. The county's agreed to take over project management of those. We'll be sending over about 19.45%, which is kind of the percentage of what those roads would be. If we're doing credits or any kind of waivers, if we're not collecting money, we don't send anything. It's only for the projects that we're actually collecting the funds where we'll do that distribution for that. So then as part of your process, that'll help the county. They've committed to doing Cross Prairie Parkway first to get over that canal and get connected to Nolte Interchange, which is huge for us. And then there's other roads that we'll be working on prioritizing as well. Right now it's Canoe Creek south of Deer Run, I think, Friars Cove Road, and I think Mildred Bass. But at the end of the day, with that process, we can be looking at different projects over time. This talks about what I've already talked about. I'm so sorry. We obviously recommend approval. Before we do that, Mayor, Council, we made one change to the interlocal agreement. Well, actually, it's a couple of changes. You should have in front of you a document called the Transportation ILA Update, September 19th. I want to put this on the overhead. Chief thinks that if I drink, I talk less, so he gave me a whole bottle. So the first thing is we had concerns from some of the development community that putting the entire Sunbridge agreement that the county has with the Sunbridge development folks was kind of special treatment. We actually already have a paragraph, a section that deals with any existing agreements that we have or the county has prior to this being adopted. We respect everything that's been adopted, similar to what we do with annexations. So we don't necessarily need this paragraph that's found in section 9. It's the second last paragraph. and I'll read it. It says, "Top priorities within the county's Northeast Mobility Fee District shall be consistent with county road obligations in that area. This is consistent with the Sunbridge Development Agreement dated December 13th, 2021, included here as Exhibit 12. So we'll be removing that paragraph, and we'll be eliminating Exhibit 12. So we already respect that. We just didn't need to do it drawn out because, as you've heard, we've also got an agreement with Center Lake Ranch. We got agreements with Lakeside at Satia, although I think we did tri-party on that. There's agreements that we've done over time and that the county's done over time. We're actually respecting that, but so we didn't have to call out Sunbridge, is what I'm saying. Now, what the county did with Sunbridge, however, is similar to what they're going to be doing with the JPA. So we think it's going to be very successful. What happened when we took out Exhibit 12 was that Exhibit 13 becomes Exhibit 12, Exhibit 14 becomes 13, Exhibit 15 becomes 14. We've modified that portion of the agreement to change the numbers, and we redid the index to reflect it accurately. With those changes, we recommend approval, and we ask you all also to approve it. I do want to mention that Josh DeVries has sat through the whole meeting from the county. Josh, Nick Hartley, and their entire staff at the county was very helpful on this. Cameron Crandall, once again, with Kevin Felblinger, the Public Works Director, Melissa Dunklin and her team, especially Tammy Reckie, did an incredible job here. They were doing mobility plan update, Vision Zero, the mobility fee study, and this for the last 2 years. So I don't know that they'd want me to talk anymore, so I'll just shut up and answer questions.
Thank you. If you'll stand by for just a moment. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Please come forward.
Hello, Matt Smith again. Appreciate this, and I appreciate Dave taking that Sunbridge agreement out. Certainly, our ears pricked up when we saw that the Sunbridge agreement was the only private agreement attached to the interlocal agreement. And it raised this issue. Well, Dave set up a meeting, again, with 1 day of notice with the county staff. So I'm letting you know, the county staff assured us that Sunbridge is going to pay full mobility fees. And that also means that they're going to pay the same amount, essentially, that anybody else would, right? I mean, we're building a major road, a county framework road up to Sunbridge. We can't have a neighbor project that has lower costs than we do for roads like that. We wouldn't be able to do anything. Everyone would just go there, of course. Quality, commercial, everything of quality would go there first. And we just have to sit there and wait to build our roads later, right? There's no way in that scenario we could finance roads, even if we can figure out the extra $45 million mobility fees here, or I mean less 15%. So I'm not blowing that off. There's no way we can build roads to connect Narcoossee and Nova. It just we could. It's just going to take, I don't know, however long for the market to catch up with $45 million. 10 years, whatever it is, I don't know. So the point is that they pay this. Everyone pays the same mobility fee rates, but that also means without any other mechanisms that would sort of result in the same thing, that would result in them paying a little, and someone paying less, even though the checks are being written for the same mobility fee amounts. Well, but if it's sort of been made up somewhere else, it's the same problem, just couched differently. I don't know if any of this exists. So part of our concern was, let's have the county confirm these things in writing. I know it's late, it's a hard thing to say now, but this also emphasizes the problem with having mobility fees revised. They come out on a Wednesday at the county, and they're approved by the Board of County Commissioners on Monday. What do you do as a private organization, someone who's been planning a project for over 10 years? There's no stakeholder meeting about, hey, here's the new methodology, here's what we've done. No, I've got 3 minutes and then 3 minutes before to talk about this. But HNTB can get up here and talk as long as they want to explain their perspective on these things. But, you know, I could stand here for an hour and we wouldn't get through half of it. I mean, these are major issues for us. And again, we just want to build roads, but we have to these things should be understood before they're adopted. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Surprised you didn't speak earlier. Go ahead.
Good evening, Council. Sean Hindle, 8 Broadway, Kissimmee, Florida, Hans Walter & Associates. First off, thank you. I know decisions you make are difficult, and I appreciate you considering our community. It's been my community for over 35 years, and it's important to me that we're taken care of, so I appreciate it. I know it's not easy. On the ILA, it's obviously the perfect document that needs to be put in place to bring all this together, but there's a gap, and we've talked about it on a previous project before, that just needs a policy. It doesn't need to be in the ILA, but we need a policy at the county and the city concerning annexations and projects that are approved. If we've submitted SDPs or submitted approvals in the county, and then we go to construction, we're running into unknowns about who we pay our inspection fees to, who we have our pre-construction conferences with, and who's going to inspect the road while we're building it. And I know it seems like a little thing, but as we ramp up and we bid these projects out through our CDDs, you know, we don't know what our inspection fees amounts are going to be, and we don't know who's going to inspect it. And I don't think it's a difficult policy. I think if it's a road that's going to be a city road, whether it's in 18 months or 3 years, the city should inspect it. You know, they're the one that road lasts 20 years before you do any major maintenance. So they should be inspecting it. But if it's a staff thing or we need to hire a CEI consultant to inspect it, just tell us. But we need to get a policy that we know going in that this is the direction we go, because we're spending a lot of time and your staff is spending a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure out who's going to do this. And that's all I ask is if you know, your transportation, your public works people can get together and establish a solid policy, just so I know, and my other engineers that work in this area know how to proceed and how to direct our clients. That's all I ask, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean. Is this something that you can address for us?
It's already, I'm sorry. It's already on the list. The next step is to coordinate those tri-party agreements, review of all the developments, and where that transfer takes place. Staff is already meeting with the county on a regular basis to go over developments that it is in the works, but it will be imminently annexed. So we're doing much better at coordinating, communicating. This next year, if this all goes well, we will be slowly putting all those things into place so that we're actually working as one team. So.
All right. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and motion by council. Councilmember Fletcher.
So we adopted the mobility fee schedule as well as the resolution to come up with how much we charge. This is the document that basically says how the money gets spent. I have a couple issues with this document, and I would like to, this is not, I mean, obviously it's tied to it, but we're not up against a deadline with this. I'd like to bring it back, when's our next meeting?
October 10th.
October 10th, so September. I would like to bring it back at the next city council meeting if council was okay with that.
Are you making a motion for continuance?
Yes.
Second.
That was quick. I didn't even ask.
Sorry.
Well, but
I usually have to beg you guys.
Mr. Fletcher, I think we would be looking for some understanding of what we need to do to work on the agreement to bring it back with. Because staff has spent a lot of time with county staff working on this and working out the language on this. So if there's issues, I think we.
So I would like to get questions answered in reference to Center Lake. I also, the implementation of the priority network, which I believe is Exhibit 7. I understand that all of the roads on there do benefit the city, but I don't believe there's a city road on.
Friars Cove.
Friars Cove is on there. And then, those are really, like, I would just like a little bit more time to take a look at it.
We can
through it.
schedule time with you.
Thank you.
Anything
Thank
else?
you. No, that's enough. I was just trying to see if we were talking about a wordsmithing thing or language thing, but more of initially you're looking at more of an understanding to go through all the.
Correct.
The multiple exhibits that Mr. Tomek felt were necessary.
Right, rather
to be
than doing it
attached.
up here, I
Thank
would
you.
like to have more time. I mean, we spent probably 50 hours on it this
Thank
week.
you.
But I need more time.
So do we have a date?
October 10th, I think you said, right?
October 10th. So the motion is for continuance to October 10th of resolution number 2024-127R, is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
And we had a delightful second by Mr. Urban. Madam Clerk, you please call the roll for continuance.
Councilmember Fletcher.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
You're going to miss me, aren't you?
Definitely.
Mr. Menzares.
The only thing I have to report, Mr. Cooper said it earlier, we did close on the property at 3101 Progress Lane. It went very smoothly, and the city is a proud owner of that. But I told the fire chief that he was chomping at the bit to get in the building. He was basically emailing me every 10 minutes saying, did we close yet? Did we close yet? I'm sorry, it was every 15 minutes, it wasn't every 10 minutes. That's all I.
Thank you very much. That was obviously an incredibly wise and good move. I think it's going to greatly benefit our city. I'd like to ask our city manager, do you have anything for us, Ms. Miller?
I have two things. First, the paddle boat agreement, which you approved earlier tonight. I just wanted to report that the electric installation will begin on Monday for the paddle boat and also for the bollards that we're putting in for the safety purposes down there. And the other thing was just to go on record that we're going to miss Mr. Tomek a lot, me especially. And we were really lucky to have him for as long as he was here to help us get some of these really big projects across the finish line. So thank you, Dave. That's all.
Councilmember Fletcher. I just have two things. One, at the last council meeting, during my time, I had asked if we could put some no parking signs up on the corner of Russell or on Russell over by the schools. Kind of funny. So got home, went to bed, woke up, and they were already on site at like 6:30 in the morning, texting me going, "Hey, here's the sign." So like they really got it taken care of.
We really listened.
And I spoke to the resident there on the corner, and he was very thankful. So I just wanted to report that back to staff, and then to say thank you to Dave. It's been an honor to work with you. You know, you're here at 6 o'clock and you don't leave till 9. And I think the community knows it. All of the downtown business owners, I've spoken to them. They're going to miss you coming in for your sandwiches, your barbecue, and so forth. But I look forward to having a contact at the county to be able to continue further the projects that we're currently working on. So thank you for your service to our city, sir.
Councilmember Matheny.
I don't really have anything to say. I would tell Mr. Tomek I'm going to miss him, but he's going to be sitting right next to me. But thank you for all your help with the city, and I don't have anything else.
Councilmember Urban.
Just want to also thank Mr. Tomek for his service to this city. I actually went and had the Dave Tomek sandwich down at 10th Street Produce today in honor of him. So just wanted to thank him for that, and he'll definitely be missed.
Councilmember Gilbert.
Nothing publicly. Dave and I talked personally, so we're good, brother.
And I guess it's my turn. I, too, would like to thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your wisdom and your counsel. Thank you for always being a positive asset, even when times were difficult. And I think you're going to continue to be an asset for us, certainly over at the county. And we want to be sure to thank the county for those checks for, recreation, and see if you can get any more checks sent over here. We would be really grateful. But you will be missed big time. I have an item. I serve on the Metro Plan, and we just were recently approved to actually become a voting member. It took a year for that to get passed, even though I was attending the meetings. Mr. Gilbert has been the alternate member of representing our city on Metro Plan, and he's attended as many meetings as I have. He's been diligent, and the next Metro Plan meeting will be in November. And in talking with the director of Metro Plan, they would really love to see someone actively in place by our city and not have to wait on an election to take place to replace me. But I'm sure Mr. Gilbert could step in, but I'd like to see him appointed as the primary representative from our city to Metro Plan, and I'd like to make that a motion. If I could have a second.
Second.
Any objections? I don't have to call the roll on that.
No,
do I?
you don't.
All right, I got a lot of nods. Would any of you guys like to be the alternate?
Not me.
Thank you.
He said guys.
It's a very
Oh, that's true.
important
Guys.
thing. Mr. Gilbert is very faithful in attending, but this is a very important
I wouldn't mind.
position. Mr. Fletcher has volunteered. Do I have a motion that we appoint Mr. Fletcher? Do I need a motion for that?
I don't think you do, no.
All right. Are there any objections to Mr. Fletcher
No.
serving as our alternative, our alternate? And you are so appointed. And Mr. Gilbert, thank you for doing such a great job as a backup and filling in the times that I couldn't make those meetings.
I appreciate it, Mayor. That's a big shoes to fill, but I promise you I'll do my best.
Well, I'm sure you will do a much better job than I could have done. With that, we bring to our information section and report section. Thursday, October the 10th, there will be a city council meeting at 6:30 p.m. here in council chambers. Thursday, October the 17th, there'll be a CRA meeting that has been canceled. And then Thursday, October 17th, there will be a city council workshop that has also been canceled. There are no reports to report. With that, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you for participating in your government.
I know, I didn't notice it until.